The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and sharp disinfectant. The fluorescent lights above flickered occasionally, humming like a tired machine trying to stay alive. A crowd had gathered, mostly for routine hearings, parking tickets, petty theft, custody battles. But in the front row sat a man who didn't seem to belong there. Jack Turner, a single dad and Army veteran, stood tall though his jacket was worn at the elbows and his boots had seen better days. His posture was disciplined, military straight, but his eyes were tired, the kind of tired that comes from fighting battles no one sees. Beside him, his 8-year-old daughter Lily clutched his hand, her backpack resting against her small legs. The clerk called his case. Turner vs. Whitmore Financial Group. A corporate lawyer in an expensive gray suit strutted up like he owned the place. His name was Richard Owens, and he represented the company that had repossessed Jack's home after a disputed mortgage error. Jack had been fighting to get it back, filing motions on his own after being unable to afford an attorney. Judge Valerie Hart adjusted her glasses as she looked down from the bench. Her expression was cool, detached. "Mr. Turner, I see you're representing yourself again," she asked, her tone clipped. "Yes, Your Honor," Jack said, voice calm but firm. "I can't afford counsel, but I've reviewed the case files myself." "Reviewed the files," she repeated, almost with amusement. "Mr. Turner, this is a civil suit involving corporate finance law. It's not exactly the same as reading a field manual." A few chuckles rippled from the audience. Jack didn't react. He'd been mocked before, for his worn clothes, his quiet confidence, his insistence on fighting alone. "Your Honor," Owens began with a smirk, "perhaps we can expedite this matter." Mr. Turner's filings were, shall we say, less than professional. Judge Hart nodded. "Noted. Mr. Turner, I'll give you 5 minutes to make your argument before we proceed with Mr. Owens's motion to dismiss." Jack stepped forward, pulling out a few papers, handwritten notes, not printed briefs. He took a breath. "Your Honor, this case isn't about paperwork. It's about what's right. Whitmore Financial used a technical clause to foreclose on my property while I was deployed overseas. That's a violation of the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act." The courtroom quieted. Judge Hart tilted her head. "That's a serious claim. Do you have evidence?" Jack nodded. "I have a copy of my deployment orders and the letter from Whitmore Financial dated 2 weeks after I was deployed." Owens interjected. "Your Honor, that's irrelevant. The company followed all proper notice requirements." Mr. Turner failed to respond within the statutory period. Jack's voice sharpened. "Because I was in Afghanistan at the time. You sent the notice to an empty house." Judge Hart exhaled slowly, looking unimpressed. "Mr. Turner, I appreciate your service, but the law still requires proper documentation and process. Passion doesn't substitute for procedure." Lily shifted in her seat, whispering, "Dad, it's okay." Jack gave her hand a squeeze, his expression unreadable. "Your Honor," he said, "I understand that. But if you'll allow me, there's something about the mortgage transfer I think you'll want to see." He handed up a page, an assignment of mortgage that had been signed with a name he knew wasn't legitimate. Judge Hart scanned it briefly, then frowned. "Where did you get this?" "It was filed with the county clerk," Jack said evenly. "But the notary signature doesn't match the bank's official records. It's a robo-signature, illegal under federal law." Owens shifted uncomfortably. "Objection, Your Honor. He's speculating on." "Quiet," Judge Hart snapped. Her eyes flicked between the document and the attorney. "Mr. Owens, this does look irregular. Do you have an explanation?" Owens cleared his throat. "Likely a clerical error. Happens often in mortgage bundling." Jack didn't flinch. "A clerical error that transferred a veteran's home to a shell company overseas. You and I both know that's not an accident." The judge studied him, something in her face softening, but only for a second. "Mr. Turner, where did you learn this kind of analysis?" He hesitated. "Just experience, ma'am." She arched an eyebrow. "Experience? You mean you learned law from watching TV?" More laughter. Jack's lips twitched faintly, something between patience and amusement. "No, Your Honor," he said quietly. "I practiced it, once." Her pen paused. "You what?" "I practiced law," he repeated, voice steady. "Before my deployment, I was a trial attorney. Graduated top of my class at Yale. I left the bar after my wife passed. The army gave me purpose again. The entire courtroom froze. Even Owens's smug smile slipped. Judge Hart blinked. You were an attorney? Yes, ma'am. Assistant District Attorney, Manhattan. I left after my daughter was born. My wife's death, it changed everything. The silence was heavy now, and even the judge's posture softened. Mr. Turner, she said, voice gentler now, why didn't you disclose this earlier? Jack sighed. Because it doesn't matter. Titles don't win justice, evidence does. And I'm here as a father, not an attorney. Judge Hart leaned back, her tone shifting from mockery to curiosity. In that case, Counselor Turner, she said, using the title deliberately, perhaps you'd care to elaborate on your theory of fraud. Owens protested, Your Honor, this is highly irregular, he's not a licensed attorney anymore. Sit down, Mr. Owens, she said sharply. Let's hear him. Jack nodded respectfully. Thank you, Your Honor. If you'll notice on page 4 of the mortgage assignment, the trust that supposedly purchased my loan doesn't exist. I traced its filings. It was dissolved 2 years before the foreclosure. That means the foreclosure was executed by a non-entity. Void ab initio. Judge Hart's jaw tightened as she flipped through the documents. You're saying the entire foreclosure is legally invalid? Yes, ma'am, Jack said. Whitmore Financial's attorneys used fraudulent paperwork to seize assets. Not just mine. Dozens of veterans. I found the pattern last month. The judge turned to Owens. Mr. Owens, this had better not be true. Owens stammered. Your Honor, I'll have to review the documents. Jack stepped closer. You already did. You signed the motion yourself. Owens's face drained of color. The courtroom buzzed. The judge raised a hand for silence. She looked back at Jack, this time with a kind of wary respect. Mr. Turner, you've presented evidence of potential fraud. That's beyond the scope of a simple foreclosure hearing. Yes, ma'am, Jack said. That's why I filed a motion to compel discovery last week. But the clerk said it was rejected for formatting issues. The judge grimaced slightly. She knew how often technicalities buried truth. Consider it accepted now, she said firmly. I'm granting your motion. Whitmore Financial will produce all records related to this mortgage transfer within 10 days. Owens started to protest again, but she silenced him with one look. And Mr. Owens, she said icily, I suggest you advise your client to prepare for an internal audit. I will not tolerate predatory practices against service members in my court. The gavel came down once, sharp and final. Jack exhaled slowly, shoulders dropping for the first time all morning. Lily's small hand squeezed his again. Dad, does that mean we get our house back? Not yet, he said softly, kneeling beside her. But it means we get to fight for it the right way. Judge Hart watched them for a long moment. She stood, removed her glasses, and stepped down from the bench, something she almost never did. Mr. Turner, she said quietly, I owe you an apology. I made an assumption based on appearance, not merit. That was wrong. Jack shook his head. No apology needed, Your Honor. People see what they expect to see. I've learned that. She gave a small smile. Even so, I respect what you did today. Most people wouldn't have caught that fraud, let alone had the courage to face it alone. I wasn't alone, Jack said, glancing down at Lily. She's my reason. The judge's eyes softened. You're a good father, she said quietly. And if you ever decide to rejoin the bar, I suspect this city could use you. Jack smiled faintly. Maybe one day. As they left the courtroom, reporters had already started whispering, trying to piece together what they'd just witnessed. A homeless veteran who'd outwitted a corporate legal team and exposed fraud in open court. Outside, the autumn air was crisp, the sky sharp blue. Lily skipped ahead, her backpack bouncing. Dad, you were amazing. Jack chuckled. I just told the truth, sweetheart. That's all. Can we get ice cream now? She asked. He smiled. After all that, I think we earned it. As they walked toward the corner, a voice called from behind. Judge Hart was stepping down the courthouse stairs, her robe replaced by a navy coat. Mr. Turner, she called. One more thing. He turned. She handed him a card. I sit on the board of a Veterans Legal Assistance Fund. They could use someone who knows both sides of the fight. Think about it. He took the card, reading the embossed letters. Then he looked up, meeting her gaze. "Thank you, Judge, for believing me at the end." She nodded once. "You earned it." Jack slipped the card into his pocket. As he and Lily walked away, the courthouse loomed behind them, not as a place of judgment anymore, but as a place of redemption. He had lost his home once. But in that courtroom, with nothing but truth and persistence, he'd rebuilt something far stronger: his dignity, his voice, and maybe, just maybe, a new beginning. Lily reached up to take his hand again. "Dad, yeah, does this mean you're a lawyer again?" Jack smiled. "No, honey, it means I'm your dad. And that's the best job I'll ever have." They walked off down the steps together, father and daughter, soldier and scholar, ready to face whatever came next. Behind them, Judge Hart watched from the courthouse steps, her expression unreadable but thoughtful. She had seen many cases, many people, but something about Jack Turner lingered with her, a reminder that greatness doesn't always wear a suit, and that sometimes, the quietest fighters carry the sharpest minds. And as the doors closed behind her, the world outside continued, unaware that, for one single dad and his daughter, justice had finally found its way home.